If you felt like your body is vibrating or your perception of time is fracturing, you're not imagining it. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down for you the 5 most bizarre events that have been predicted based on my communications with higher dimensional extraterrestrials, including the total disintegration of religion, a complete reality inversion that will flip everything as you know on its head. But first, we need to understand why your DNA is actually being rewritten by the sun's frequency right now. And then we'll get into why the elites are so terrified, because they are the only ones who are going to be left behind in a dark 2-dimensional matrix. All right, so this is the Michael Denny channel, and I'm sharing with you my own personal experiences. So again, if you're new to my channel, I don't quote from some other podcaster. I don't quote from a book or a religion. I'm not interested in following trends. I'm only here to do one thing, and that is to share with you my personal experiences. And by the way, I don't expect you to believe me. In fact, my instruction is that you don't believe me. Stay skeptical. If you want to find out what I'm saying is the truth, I can show you how to do that, and you can figure that out for yourself. Never let anybody tell you what the truth is. Never get your truth from anything outside of yourself. I always prove through my own personal experience what I choose to believe and what I know is true. So I'm talking about my personal experiences. Believe them or don't, completely up to you. All right, so we're going to get into this. This is the 5 bizarre events that extraterrestrials want you to know about beforehand. And I've got a special one at the bottom, and the reason why I've got this one is because this isn't something that was predicted, and is now hasn't happened in 2026 yet. This is something that ETs shared with me, I think at least two and a half years ago. And it turns out they were talking about 3I Atlas and what 3I Atlas is doing. So the 6th special is what 3I Atlas really means. And what they said to me was, when the comet appears, everything changes. Bear in mind, I didn't know what they were talking about. And even after 3I Atlas was discovered, I still didn't know what they were talking about. It wasn't until that all of the crazy things about 3I Atlas started coming to the surface, and I started not only researching it objectively in the 3rd dimension, but doing my own astral traveling and communicating with ETs, and what they told me was amazing, and it has everything to do with what is happening right now. 2026 is a pivotal year. Everything is going to shift. When we're in the future, living in a completely different reality, we are going to tell our kids and our grandkids, and we're going to look back and we're going to go, yeah, it all started in 2026. That's when everything started to shift. So whether these things happen quickly or slowly, this is when it all starts. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. First one is the sun triggers a DNA shift. Now this is going to go back to 3I Atlas. I will talk about it in depth, having to do with 3I Atlas when we get to it. But this is what people have been talking about for decades. They've been calling it the event, the solar flash event. So let me share something with you. Bear in mind, again, before June of 2022, I didn't believe in any of this stuff. Yes, I was a spiritual teacher. I was a meditator. I did Qigong. And so it wasn't that I wasn't familiar with spiritual practices or beliefs. It's just that I wasn't into the New Age thing. My experience with New Agers was less than desirable. So the stuff I'm going to tell you now is not something that I've been wanting to share for a long time, because I didn't believe in it. And I didn't even know what the solar flash event was. And I wouldn't have, because I wouldn't have listened to it. Because it came out so crazy. So the solar flash event, I found out, in case you want to know, the way that the mythology about it goes, the most recent mythology is that, and this goes all the way back to 2000, this the beginning of the new millennium. So the way that the event, or the solar flash event, is supposed to go is that, according to them, what they call the central sun, which is really the black hole at the center of our galaxy. They say the central sun is going to send high vibrational gamma radiation through a wormhole to our sun. And then the sun is going to release that onto the earth. Now, the way that it was presented is that it would be a flash event. It would be a single moment where there would be this huge explosion from the sun, and everything would, it would hit the earth and everything would shift. Now, I'm not against that. If that's the way it happens, I'm perfectly fine with it. I'm not convinced that's what it is. In fact, my belief is that that's not how it happens. But the idea is that the sun is going to send energy that's going to shift everything, including our DNA, give us a new, what we call 5D body, all of that stuff. All right, so that's the belief. I'm not saying that's what they told me. That's what people believed. One of the first things that happened when I started doing CE5, that's how this all started. Look it up, CE5 protocols. I did human-initiated contact with extraterrestrials. I was very serious about it. Even though I didn't believe in it, I was determined to either have the experience or prove that it was a bunch of nonsense. And because I was so serious about it, they responded. They responded to the level of my seriousness. You should hold on to that note. They will respond to your level of seriousness. I was extremely serious, and I was absolutely committed to proving or disproving this whole human-initiated contact with ETs. Even the fact that they exist or don't exist, I was committed to find out for myself, again, through personal experience. So I was overwhelmingly successful, so much so that it absolutely destroyed my understanding of reality. And one of the first things that happened is that I had a lucid dream very shortly after my first. If you want to know what happened, you can go to the Aliens playlist or go onto my channel and search for how I became an extraterrestrial. You will see, because I documented what happened, video and audio. You will see what happened. It absolutely flipped me out. Now, I didn't need to be flipped out. The reality that was being presented to me, that I was in contact and communicating with a higher dimensional being from another planetary civilization, was so frightening to my mind. It flipped me out. It doesn't mean anything bad happened. You don't have to be afraid. In any case, after that event, I had a lucid dream, and in the lucid dream, I won't get into the details of the symbolism, but the message was very clear. The message is that there was going to be a worldwide event that everybody was going to see. They were going to see it in the sky, and it was going to have a complete shift, and everything was going to change, including that religion as we know it was going to be completely disintegrated. For the simple fact that people would awaken to an awareness that went beyond what religion does. Not because there'd be anybody out there, railing against it or proving it wrong. That never works. It's literally because people would wake up and go, oh, I've been believing something that doesn't make sense. And what we will experience, which some people might call religion, is just going to be seeing the truth for what it is. Anyway, we'll get into that later. So in that dream, what I saw was that the world was going to shift, and that it was going to be an event that everybody was going to see. And after that, I was, trying to figure this out. I was still doing videos and live streams and something like that, and stuff like that. And what ended up happening was that I ran into this belief called the solar flash. So I started talking about my dream and what I believed was going to happen on my live stream. And I said, but I think I'm just making that up. I think that's just nonsense coming from my unconscious. By the way, that's one of the ways you know that you've had a real interaction, because you doubt it. When somebody is deluded, like somebody is having a psychotic delusion about something, they're very attached to it. So if somebody is very attached and they say, no, I definitely have seen ETs and I have gone to if they're very adamant about that, that's not a good sign. If somebody is like, yeah, I had this really crazy experience and I got to be honest, I don't know if I made it up or not, that is actually a sign that it's real, because they don't have the narcissistic attachment to their delusion. So this is where I was. I had this experience and I was saying on live, I think I'm making it up, I don't know. And then somebody in the live stream chat said, no, that's a real thing. It's called the solar flash event, or the event. And so after that video, I went and looked it up, and I went, oh my God, that's it. These New Age freaks were right. Now, I've since changed my opinion about that a little bit, but for the most part, I would say it's about 90% accurate. So here's what happened. I went into interdimensional meditation. I made contact with extraterrestrials, and I said, what is this world-changing event going to be? Is it going to be fleets of spaceships? Because that's what happened to me. I connected to beings from higher dimensions who came here in crafts from other planets in higher dimensions, and the energy that they have. By the way, I can tell when somebody's communicated with an ET instantly, not because I'm psychic, but because the way they talk about it. If somebody is making it up, they can't possibly make up what really happens. But when it really happens and you've experienced it, you know that they know that you know. So the energy in that was just so bizarre and so not part of my third dimensional reality, and so blissful and intense and beautiful and powerful. It was all of those things. So my assumption was that the only way that the world is going to shift is if just fleets of these higher dimensional spaceships come and they communicate with humans, and humans will have to shift, because that's what happens when you connect to higher dimensions. You have to shift. So I thought that's what was going to happen. So I said, so what is this shift going to be? Is it going to be a fleet of spaceships? And they said no. The shift is going to come as a result of a series of solar waves of love. That's a quote. A series of solar waves of love that are going to penetrate into the fabric of the earth and shift the molecules of everything, including all of the plants and the animals and the people. And they will shift up. That was it. If you've interacted with higher dimensional beings, it's not like sitting down across, the table from somebody where you can go. It's not like that. Big, you'll get a message that will be filled. It's like a zip file. You'll get a zip file and a huge amount of energy, and then you kind of have to unzip the file, and you kind of don't know what you're looking at, and sometimes it takes weeks, months, or even years before you're able to fully expand and integrate it. So that was the message that hit me. The shift is going to be a series of solar waves of love. And it turns out that right after that, we entered into the current solar phase that we're in, which has been one of the most active. And the solar storms that were hitting the Earth back then, 2022 up until now, I mean, there was energy going off the charts. And I'll share with you something very interesting, and people who follow the channel have heard me talk about this, is that I came across a scientific study where they were measuring high frequency gamma rays that were hitting Earth. And they found out that there was a huge amount of gamma rays hitting Earth that were coming from the sun. Now, here's where it gets crazy. And here, this is the scientists talking, and they said, and that's impossible. The sun is not capable of producing this level of gamma wave frequencies. And then they went on to say that the only way that this could be made is inside of a black hole. The scientists then went on to say, their theory was that there was some mechanism that they didn't understand, that the galactic center, the black hole at the galactic center of the Milky Way, was sending high frequency gamma rays to our sun, which was then releasing it onto the planet. Now, that is identical to what the New Agers were saying. They were saying that when I first heard it, I went, oh, please give me a break. But what they say is that the galactic center is going to send through a wormhole high frequency gamma rays to the sun, which the sun will then release and send to Earth, which will then create the solar flash. Scientists just a couple years ago said that the sun is sending high frequency gamma radiation to Earth, and it is impossible for the sun to do that. So some way we don't understand, the black hole at the center of our galaxy is sending this to the sun, and the sun is sending it to the Earth. You can't make this up. You can't make this stuff up. So this is something that's been going on, but it's definitely happening. It's increasing right now, and it's going to continue to increase in 2026. So number two, the disintegration of religion. We already talked about that. It's not going to be that somebody's going to disprove it. I mean, it's very easy to disprove made-up human religions. I've been doing it for years. What's going to happen again is that this shift is going to create a consciousness expansion, and it's very simple. It's just an evolution of our minds to be able to see and think. We will move beyond our lower childish emotional limitations, and we'll move to a higher place, and we'll go, oh, that's all it is. And then we'll start talking the way the Vedics have, and shamans have, that, yeah, we live in a conscious universe, that this is actually a third dimensional video game. It's an illusion, and that we are all very powerful, infinite beings from higher dimensions. And it's just going to be the reality. We're just going to see reality for what it is. And we'll find out that reality is love. Reality is connection. It is that powerful, energetic feeling of spirituality. That is reality. I've talked about this in other videos. I won't take up the time here, but we live in an isolated, third-dimensional, lower frequency experiment that is self-reflective. It's like living inside of a mirrored fishbowl. We don't see out of it. Even if we look through our telescopes, we're really just looking inside our own fishbowl. And so we are separated from the rest of consciousness. As long as we're incarnated on Earth, trust, as soon as the soul is out of the body, we reconnect. And we're connected with everything, and we're in higher dimensions. In fact, you might even have a physical body in a higher dimension. Right now, your perception is in this third dimensional body, but you might have another body that looks completely different. You might have an insectoid body, for all we know. That's the kind of reality we live in. This is a video game. It's a perception. And people are going to figure that out. I went off on a tangent. I forgot what we were talking about. So the disintegration of religion is going to be, people are just going to wake up to what is. And instead of what we do now, I mean, people talk about religion as a faith, which means a belief. And we give other people the right to have their own belief systems, knowing that nobody really knows. So you can believe whatever you want. I'm going to believe what I want. You believe that thing. I hate that religion, but that's what they believe, so I have to respect it. It's their faith. And, when I was a Christian as a kid, I'm no longer a Christian, but when I was a Christian as a kid, we would go door to door, and I remember I was in a Baptist church, and knock on the door, and the guy would say, "Are you familiar with the Baptist faith?" And I went, "What do you mean Baptist? Don't you mean Christian?" And he says, "Well, That's my particular brand of Christianity, is Baptist. But the fact that you have to throw around the word faith, which means belief, which means you don't know. We're going to know. If you've had the kinds of experiences I have, you know. I don't need a belief system. I already know. I experience it. You're going to experience it too. Time will definitely bear that out. So the third one is the reality inversion event. We're making our way to that. This is the logical next step. When we get rid of our beliefs, our programs that we force ourselves to have so that we can try and make sense of reality, when we expand beyond that, what's going to happen is everything is going to flip on its head. And that's what I was told was going to happen this year. Light beings, ETs, told me that this year everything's going to flip. And they were very insistent about that. And it had the feeling of like, listen, you can't comprehend it yet, but it's going to happen. And everything that you know, the way that everything works, society, religion, civilization, governments, blah, 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 science, all of it is going to completely flip on its head. So I'm waiting to see that as well. That's what they've told me. I've certainly experienced it in my personal life, but I can't wait for that to happen for everybody else. All right, here's an interesting one. The elites fall into a dark matrix. Now, this is something that I was shown and I had doubts about it, and I went back multiple times. By the way, I want you to understand something. This is very important. Do not be attached to what you believe. And don't only believe things that you want to believe. I am more interested in the truth than I am in feeling comfortable. And so a lot of these understandings have been extremely uncomfortable, including the ones that I thought were silly, like, the solar flash event. I thought that was just silly New Age nonsense. Turns out that's a real thing. Other things that I thought were silly, 13,000 years ago, Atlantis was a worldwide civilization. I thought that was just, ridiculous fairy tales. I've come to find out that that's actually real. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing a guy who has unbelievable evidence for this. So you'll see that when it comes out. So don't be attached to what you believe, and don't be afraid to believe things that are frightening. Now, I say that because there are people listening to me who are very attached to their victim mentality beliefs. Those of you who want to believe that there are higher dimensional light beings out there who want to trap you into reincarnation, and so don't go into the light. When I tell people you don't have to worry about that, there's nothing to worry about out there, there's nothing but love, you would think they would go, oh, thank God. I don't have to worry about when I die what's going to happen. Oh, I feel so much better. You'd think that's how they'd respond. But you'd be surprised, a lot of these people get angry when I take away their victim mentality. When I tell them that, no, actually there's no horrible beings out there in higher dimensions that are trying to harm you. In fact, they only love you. In fact, they're your family. In fact, you're related to them. In fact, you were one of them. No, they want to be told that they're tiny little beings that are being hurt and destroyed and manipulated, because that's their three-dimensional experience with other humans, so they spiritualize it. So be willing to let go of your sacred cows. If you're not willing to do that, reality is going to be a very, very hard pill to swallow, because it is far more strange and bizarre than anything you've experienced. All right, so the elites are going to fall into a dark matrix. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm not going to get into the details of it in this video because it's an intense one and I'm still working through it. But the frequency of mind that the dark elites have, which, let's be clear, is just narcissism. It's narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathy, people who don't have a sense of self. They are so empty within that the only way they can feel alive is if they are feeding off of other humans. They're enslaving them, abusing them, lying to them, living off of. This is what money is about. Money was created for one reason only. People want to say it's a means of barter. Yeah, obviously. No, we had barter for a long time. Oh, you want some skins? I've got some knives. That's barter. I give you a thing in exchange for a thing. Money is purely a symbolic thing that is meant to control you. In fact, it is, what we say in the United States, we don't do this, we're not into social credit score. Money is a social credit score. Don't believe me? Go and try and get credit if you don't have any debt. You won't get any. Because once you have debt, you're in the system. And once you do what they tell you, they will give you more credit. They will give you more debt. And you think they're giving you money. But again, take a handful of cash, throw it on the ground, and tell it to build a car. Money hasn't built or created anything. People. Throw money on the ground and tell it to create a forest. It won't. Trees grow out, metal comes from the earth, water comes from the sky. All of the things we need are already here, and money doesn't create it or get it. Anyway, that's another issue. So the elites are going to fall into a reality where the frequency of mind that they have, which is narcissistic self-evaluation, they hate themselves. They live in a horrible, the idea that, that movies have presented is that narcissists are these beings, these people that for some reason we've come to the conclusion that they're super smart and they know everything and they know what you're thinking and feeling, and that they don't have any feelings whatsoever and they can sit behind in their, without any problems. I don't feel anything. Nothing bothers me. That's why I can do, and I can have all this control. And that's not what's happening at all. These people inside, they're narcissists. Narcissists are people who were so damaged, so psychologically devalued and damaged as children that they don't have a sense of self. They don't feel any self-love. They don't feel any self-worth. So the only way they can get worth for themselves is from you, which is why they lie to you, steal from you, manipulate you, attack you, enslave you, control you, all of these things. I mean, think about it. Think about the richest people on the planet. They have billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. In fact, I think, what's his name? The richest guy, his name escapes me at the moment. He's almost at $1 trillion. And it's still not enough. Only somebody who's absolutely empty inside can't go, wow, I have more money than I could ever possibly spend. I can stop now. No, they not only have to have more billions and billions of dollars that they'll never be able to spend, but they have to have your hundreds and take that away. This is narcissism. That frequency that they're at it's self-sustaining. And so they're actually going to be pulled into a lower vibrational state. And they will be trapped there. Now, the question is whether or not that means that you can look at them and see them, or will we shift to a whole other reality, or will they shift down to a whole other reality? These are questions that we're going to have to find out. I'm not going to get into that. I could tell you what the ETs have told me, but it is so bizarre and so unbelievable, I'd have to make a whole video about that. If you want me to talk about that, put in the comments that you want to hear about that, and I'll talk about it. And then fifth, this is the least believable one, but this is what they told me. Twice. What they showed me was that in the sky, I know this, as I say this, I just got hit with energy, which is them going, yeah. So, listen, I will be totally okay if this doesn't happen. I am not attached to this. I am, again, just simply sharing with you what I believe they told me. What they told me was that in the sky, there is going to appear what we will experience as a white hole. You know how we experience black holes? Black holes are these things that, they're just these weird things that pull everything in, and all the laws inside change, and all that stuff. So this is going to be a white hole, where it's sort of like a tear in the dimension and a portal, but energy will be coming out of it, and it will be pure white light, and it will look like a white hole, and it will be very frightening. People will look at it and it will frighten them, understandably, because it's not like a comet. Oh, I know what a comet is. So it's not a whatever, it's not a star, it's this thing, we don't know what it is, but there will be so much energy coming out of it that it will have such a huge effect on people that it will start shifting people. And that's going to be the thing where people start awakening. And outside of that, I can't tell you, because as of January 12th, as I'm making this, I'm still in the third dimension. Even though I'm shifting in and out, there are things about that I don't think I can comprehend. Again, that's the craziest thing I've heard. I'm not attached to it. I don't need it to be true. If 5 years from now I'll come back, if I'm wrong, I'll tell you, yeah, that didn't happen. I was wrong. But the video is, here's the 5 things that they told me were going to happen. So we'll see if that happens in 2026 or not. To be clear, time for them is not the same for us. So they've told me things that such and such is going to happen, and it sounds like it's going to happen tomorrow. And I waited around and nothing happened, and then weeks later or a year or 2 years later it happens. So usually everything they tell me happens, as long as I'm not projecting my own things onto it. If I got a clean slate and I hear them accurately, everything they've told me has come true. So assuming that I was hearing this, and again, this wasn't something I wanted to hear or liked hearing, so that tells me that it's probably going to happen. So, the white hole event. Now, let's get to 3I Atlas and what it really means. About two and a half years ago, they said to me, when the comet appears, everything changes. By the way, that was a very intense visitation. So, to be clear about how I communicate with them, I did CE5 in June of 2022. I was dead serious about it. In fact, I said this. If you want to get anything in life, this is a good thing to say. I said, I'm willing to die to prove this one way or the other. I said, I'm going to find out even if it kills me. And I was saying that thinking, if ETs exist and it's dangerous for me to interact with them, I'm willing to die just to find out. So they took me at that. They took me at that level of seriousness. So my first interaction was so intense, and it continued for at least 6 months. Daily visitations, higher dimensional beings coming into my room, putting energy into my body, taking me places. I met and communicated with all of my loved ones that had passed away, including my fiance who passed away, and the things that she told me about who we were outside of this reality, just unbelievable. There's no way I could have made this stuff up. So that started tapering off, and then as a result of that, they had me hooked up somehow. So I'm hooked up on a higher dimensional level where I can get messages directly, and if there are ETs around, flying around, they can communicate with me. It's all done telepathically and with electromagnetic fields, just to let you know. So it's not like I hear a voice or a radio in my head. I've talked about what that is if you want to understand that, go to contact.thunderwizard.com, and there's a instructional video where I tell you how all this stuff works. Contact.thunderwizard.com if you're interested. All right, so a couple of years ago, this was an intense experience. They showed up. I felt huge amounts of energy. And in order for them to kind of prove to me that I was actually getting a real communication, they said, go outside, you'll see us. So I was in Australia. I was living in a beautiful house on the side of a forested hill overlooking the ocean, and so I went out on my balcony and I looked out in the sky, and sure enough I saw what looked like a star, but it went beep beep beep. It wasn't a plane, and it just it beeped enough so that I saw them, and I said hello, and then they were gone. And they told me this multiple times. They said a few things that were quite intense and disturbing in a wonderful way. But one of the things they said was, when you see the comet, everything is going to change. When you see the comet, hang on. So we have had comets since then that have come in. So, is that it? And nothing happened. So when 3I Atlas showed up, they were calling it this comet. They're not calling it a comet anymore, a lot of them. And I didn't pay any attention to 3I Atlas. A lot of people were making the 3I Atlas and ETs are controlling it. Even some scientists are wondering, is this thing consciously controlled because it's not following any of the laws of science according to how we understand comet science. I didn't care. So what? It's another comet, big deal. And then what happened was, during one of these live guided interdimensional meditations, we do these every Wednesday and Saturday evening live on this channel. Subscribe, hit the notification button, you'll know when we do it. It's usually, right now I'm doing it 7:30 Pacific, and you're free to join, or go to the live section and do any one of the recorded live interdimensional meditations. If you want to communicate directly with ETs, that's how you can do it. That's one of the ways. It's basically my version of sort of intense CE5. I call it interdimensional meditation. In any case, so these beings were saying, when the comet appears, when you see the comet, everything's going to change. So after 3I Atlas showed up and I wasn't interested, I was doing one of these live guided meditations, and I saw this, as I do, and I narrate what I see. I was seeing this, what looked like a funnel, and there was energy swirling around it, and it was sending energy out of this funnel. Now, bear in mind, my thought process is I'm in another dimension, so I don't take it as being literal in the third dimension. And that's what was happening. I was somewhere in another dimension, whether it was real or not. The energy was real and palpable, and that this object, conscious object, wanted to communicate with me. So I went inside of the object, and I'm looking out what looks like this funnel, and it's swirling like this. There's like 3 separate funnels that are swirling like that, sending energy out. And as I'm explaining what I'm seeing and communicating with the consciousness in it and the beings associated with it, they said, this is 3I Atlas. And this was when 3I Atlas was going around the sun, and the sun was blocking it. It was right at that time. So it was blocked by the sun. Still wasn't a big deal like it is now. And they said that 3I Atlas was sending higher vibrational frequencies to the sun to shift the sun's frequency. Now, as I do in these meditations afterwards, I usually don't remember. Not that I'm, not connected. I'm fully connected. It's just such a higher trance state, I oftentimes don't remember until somebody reminds me. I go, oh yeah, now I remember that. But I didn't pay any attention to it. The other thing is I don't pay attention to it because it's so bizarre, and I assume it's in another dimension. So I don't hold on to it, and I don't wait for these things to happen. I'm simply doing my job. Just to let you know, this is my job. My job is to make these videos, and my job is to do these meditations and to share with you what I see and feel. That's my job. I don't have any, I got to be honest with you, I don't need to do this. I don't have an attachment to it. If somebody came to me and said, you don't have to do that again, you can just spend the rest of your old age living on the beach and surfing, I'd be perfectly happy. I have no ego attached to any of this. Believe me or not. So they said that thing about 3i Atlas was sending energy to the sun, and I went, oh, that's interesting. And then as 3i Atlas starts moving through the solar system, we start finding out that this, what they call the anti-tail, which is that there's a huge amount of energy and who knows what getting shot out of this thing towards the sun. Now, I didn't know anything about comets, tail, anti-tail, what do I care? Until I found out that it's impossible for comets to have anti-tails. That the only times that they have anti-tails is usually it's an optical illusion. We look at a comet and it looks like it's shooting energy towards the sun, but it's an optical illusion. The rare times that there are anti-tails, they don't last very long, and they only send out a small amount of stuff that only goes a certain, I don't know what the length is, but it's not that far, it's not that much. But what 3i Atlas is doing is it's sending out an enormous amount of we don't know what, and it's millions of kilometers long. But not only that, it's got these 3 jets that are shooting things out. And I'm like, that's what I saw. I was looking out of this cone, and it was swirling, and the energy was swirling around. And here's the weird, inside that cone, what was being created was a completely different universe. And so it makes sense, this energy that's being sent to the sun, as this thing's moving, it's sending more and more energy to the sun, which is impossible, according to our current understanding. It's completely impossible. It's either something not part of our reality, or it's an object that's being controlled, or it's some scientific anomaly that we've never heard of before. It's one of those things. But the weird thing is that it's lining up exactly with what the ET said, and I didn't. By the time that it showed up, I had forgotten about the whole watch for the comet thing. So when the comet appears, everything changes. So we're not done with this. And 3i Atlas is heading towards Jupiter, which I'll have to make a video about why that's so significant. But anyway, I'm going to leave it here for now, my friends. Thank you so much for showing up. Listen, if you're interested in finding energy practices that will give you the ability to live through this shift, go here to thunderwizard.com. Click on Shop. And if you're new to the channel, scroll around until you see, at the bottom there, you see Mao Shan summoning the immortals, moving Qigong. It's only $29. That will connect you to these higher dimensional frequencies, to these beings. People have done this. I didn't know, I just created this and put it out there and said, here's a cool Qigong thing. And then people got back to me and said that they were doing this, and they had, like CE5 people have their radios or their walkie-talkies, and they had it on, and all of a sudden, as they're doing it, the radio starts going, which is an ET saying it sees you. So it really does summon the immortals. Prove me wrong, do it, and find out the way you prove me wrong is by doing it. So you can go to the shop. There's all kinds of other things, Celestial Qigong, Mao Shan 5 element spirit fighting. There's tons of meditations in there. I'm not getting into it. Thunderwizard.com, click on shop. If you want to interact with me, the fastest way to grow and to heal is to have direct work with me. You can do that. Go to thunderwizard.com, click on memberships, and there's all different ways that you can become an apprentice and work with me on a regular basis. And if you want to have a very simple practice that is a combination of Kundalini Yoga, Qigong, and the energy practice that the ETs taught me, which is this higher frequency electromagnetic energy that surrounds the heart. I won't get into that. I combined all those together in what is called Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Go and subscribe to that and just follow the instructions. There's so much information there, you won't believe it. There's all kinds of things. Just go check it out if you're interested. If not, that's fine too. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and share it with your friends. Give it the thumbs up, subscribe. All that stuff tells the algorithm to push the video up. So that's it for now, my friends. I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves, and I shall see you all very, very soon.